Okay, King Ghidorah. This is the end result of gluing that little plastic Ave skin on there. I don't think it looks too bad. I'm going to have to do some more experimenting with it to get it where I'm real happy with it. That's coming up later. I can't do it today. I've spent hours sitting in this chair working on that castle today just to push her done. So next time I sit down, I'm going to do some work. I'm going to scrape all this dried Aves off the back here because it scrapes off pretty easily. My experiments there were not coming out anywhere near as good as that did. Not that. That did. I mean, that's matching the texture almost perfectly. Now I got to figure out how to get that skin to go exactly where I want it without overlapping too much texture. I think I got to solve on that. So back when I've done some more experimenting.
All right, folks, we're here. Hot water. We have some Aves that is fully cured, 3 different sizes. I want to see if this thing becomes soft in hot water. So I'm throwing all 3 in. Water was boiling before I brought it in here. So we're going to see what happens. I also have some paper thin Aves here we're going to throw in there. I really don't think it will dissolve in the water. I just want to see if it becomes soft and bendable like resin does. I suspect it will, but I'm not positive of that. The reason I suspect it will is, well, resin is very similar to, yeah, it does, look. Great results. I don't know if it'll hold that shape. I bet if I throw that in cold water, oop, it broke. So you have to be careful when you're bending this stuff. But it does tell me heat will let Aves bend. Let's try my paper thin piece. This has my King Ghidorah texture on it. Wanted to know if I can bend it and shape it the way I want. And yes, this paper thin piece, as long as I'm careful, I did break it again. It's more brittle than resin. But I can bend it and shape it, and that's what I wanted to know. I can feel it moving in my fingers. See, there's a bend in it. I flattened it out earlier, and now I got a bend in it. So, you can shape Aves with hot water. Let's try one of the bigger pieces. It's been in there a while. Just gentle pressure, and it's hot. That's why I keep flinching. It's very warm. But gentle pressure, and I can bend it. You can't bend this stuff when it is rock hard and cool. I'm off camera. But you can see I put a bend in it. Sorry about being off camera. I'm afraid to bend it too much more because I'm pretty sure that'll break. So the thicker Aves will bend just like the thinner Aves will. And the big piece. Let's see if that'll bend. Now this is going to be really warm. Takes more pressure. Ah, I broke it. But it was bending before it broke, and you can see I got a bow in it. So there you go. Heat will allow you to bend Aves. Now what I was saying earlier is I expected that it would. This is an epoxy, which is pretty much the same thing as resin, being honest. It's just a more solidified state before you mix it. It's not as fluid. But I sure as hell can bend that once it's warm. That's what I needed to know, and I'm sharing it with you guys. You can heat Aves up and bend it just like resin. So, there you go. If you cast a part with Aves, you find it not in the you find it not quite in the right shape, hot water, heat it, bend it. But careful, it will break if you overbend it and overstress it. Okay? The thicker it is, the harder it is to bend, of course, but it will bend. I didn't mean to break that, but again, it will bend, and as it gets cooler, you can see I'm having a hard time bending it back. It doesn't bend as easy as it cools. I'm gonna let that cool off completely and see what happens. But there you go. You can definitely heat up Aves. I rambled too much on that one, didn't I? I'm working on a test piece for King Ghidorah. And I took one of my molds. If you remember, I was trying this piece earlier. What we have here is my earlier test piece where I molded some of the skin and then glued it on. And you can see the line where it glued on there, and I don't like that very well. So I did a couple of things. This time, I sanded it really smooth, thin, and I cut out some of the scale pattern on either side of it. That way it should reduce the seam line. Now, back up some. What I have here is a bowl of very hot water. We learned earlier that this stuff will soften in hot water, just like resin. And it should have, because it's pretty much the same stuff as resin. Getting some tweezers. I don't use them very often, but I'm not sticking my fingers in that water. It's a bit on the hot side. And I'm going to try to glue this down with some super glue. Could do some good old PVA glue, but that's out for a different reason. Nothing to do with the Godzilla build. And as thin as this piece is, this hot water should have already softened her up some. She should already be at hot water temperatures. And again, I'm not really wanting to stick my fingers in that bowl. I know how hot that water is. Yeah, that did it. She softened up pretty good. I can bend her now. I'm going to put her back in there while I apply the glue. I also scraped the surface pretty clear of the seam line. So it should be ready for me to glue that on. And we're going to see what we can get out of this. Wah! That's smart. Didn't realize it was open, so I got super glue all over my cutting mat. Okay, the super glue has been applied to my part. One of the fun things about doing this stuff on camera like this is when you screw up, everyone gets to see you screw up. But hey, isn't that part of the fun of it? Alright, now, so I don't glue my fingers to everything, I'm going to get my glasses so I feel a bit more comfortable with seeing. Old eyes and all. We're going to take some water, some paper towel, dab off that water. And I'm going to try to align this in such a way I hope that it will hide part of that seam. Yep, that's what I was afraid of. Super glue is getting on my fingers. So we're just going to lightly tack that down for right now. Let that cure. I'm going to take some more hot water to it and try to mold it around and bend it. I may not have sanded this thin enough, so this might be a no-go. But my idea of cutting this down is going to work just fine. I also didn't sand it down thin enough. Apparently, it's got to be thinner than it is. The glue is starting to set up on it. So let's float that in there, get it hot again, and see if we can smooth her around. I'm not liking the end result right now. I didn't get the Aves thin enough. This did a much better job. This one did. And I know why this one did a better job. So, yeah, we're going to have to try again. That was not thin enough. I'm going to have to get it a lot thinner than I got it. Anyhow, I'll quit ranting. Back later. Okay, back. Let it soak in hot water. Bent it to shape. You can see there's still far too much of a crease in there. I know what the problem is. The problem is the cast part's too thick. I need to thin it down. That's all that is. I'll try it again tomorrow. I'll be back. Alright everyone, we're on try number 3 of the skin idea. This is the closest I've gotten yet. Now, let me zoom in on this so everyone can get a good idea. Could get a view of it. It's still not quite right, but I'm getting better ideas on how to work it. It's definitely closer than the last try, the one I showed you in the last segment. Reason I say it's closer is it looks just like the pattern around it. Okay? It looks exactly like the pattern around it. It is not too thick this time. It's actually a really good thickness. Okay? And I think with this thickness of it and some good carving down to a very thin little strip, I can get, and some sanding on the edges, I can get this to work and get this to work well. I actually glued that on using regular old Tamiya cement. Yes, I glued Aves onto a plastic piece using Tamiya cement. I got that because I glued my finger to a piece the other day. I got that idea from that. So I'm going to see how well that holds up. I'm going to see in a little bit if I can trim that down and make it look better. Once about an hour's gone by and that's cured. Trial number 3, working well. Be back in a bit.